Okay.
Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Board of Supervisors for October 9th, 2012. Roll call.
Supervisor Bennett? Supervisor Parks? Supervisor Long?
Here.
Supervisor Foy? And Supervisor Zaragoza.
Here. And this morning we have a special person coming in to give us words of inspiration. John Lowry. He's from the Seaside Highland Games. John, can you come on over and give us a couple of words? And then we have Cindy, also McIntosh, who is going to share with us a little bagpipe music there. And so, John coming in and Cindy. Thank you so much and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy McIntosh. Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're so pleased to be here. We thank you so much for the invitation to come and share just a little bit about our Scottish Festival coming up this weekend on the fairgrounds, the Seaside Highland Games. It's a special year for us. It's our 10th anniversary. 10 years. Can't believe it. It seems like yesterday.
A whole decade.
But it's a lot of yesterdays, and we're having a bigger and better festival this year than ever. We want everyone to come. We honor our heritage. We think heritage is very, very important. Whatever your heritage is, ours happens to be, a lot of us, Scottish, and but that doesn't mean that everyone is not invited, and doesn't mean that there's something there for everyone to enjoy. So we want everyone to come out. We have very special guests this year, and I'll tell you more about it later. The United States Marine Band, the 1st Division band from Camp Pendleton, will be with us. And we've never had anything like that before, and we are honored and very excited about it. So we thank you. We're ready to open the meeting. And if everyone would stand in and join me in the salute to the flag. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. And I understand that you're going to let me try one of those, heave one of those poles, telephone poles.
Yeah. Well, that's right. We have one just your size, so you come on out.
We're going to have to work. No, wait a minute. What's it?
A lot more than that.
But you're going to help me, right?
I don't know. I think Supervisor Long could beat you on that one. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
John, you're supposed to be on my side, John.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And by the way, John's going to come back because we're going to give him a resolution and at 10 o'clock time certain. Thank you, John. Okay. I know.
No, I have nothing. We know you can.
Let's continue on with this meeting.
Yeah, I want to watch this.
Item number 5.
Take that foot out of my mouth. Yeah, all right.
The minutes of September 25th. Do we have a motion on that?
Yeah. Yes. Motion to approve.
The motion to approve.
Wherever that little thing is.
There it is.
I'm trying to get out to me by 10 o'clock. First steps up.
Okay. You get a. There it is. There it is. We got a second. Okay, so. But you want a voice on this?
Okay, yeah, just go ahead and do it.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, that's approved. Okay, the next item is agenda review. Michael?
Thank you, Chair Zaragoza. Two quick items. On item 16, there's a PowerPoint presentation. And then on item 18, we're going to change that from Supervisor Zaragoza to Supervisor Bennett.
Okay.
And that's it.
And supervisors, any changes? Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? Okay, get it first. And we need and a second by Foy? Okay, so we still don't have the computer up, so it's first by Bennett and second by Foy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's approved. Item 7, we got agenda items 10 to 15. Any?
Consent, move the consent.
Okay, we got all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's approved. Public comments, I have one card, and that's Mr. Thayer. Lucas?
Good morning.
Good morning.
This letter was addressed to Chief Jerry Williams of the Oxnard Police Department and has been also addressed to the Oxnard City Council, and now I'm directing it at you folks. Our community has organized at least 3 mobilizations and passed out thousands of leaflets in our neighborhoods to bring attention to the unjust death of Robert Ramirez, who died in police custody on June 23, 2012. We have attended the Community Relations Commission meeting and the Oxnard City Council meetings twice in order to demand that police brutality and abuse be addressed through the proper channels. In addition, we've requested the development of an independent community police complaint review board that will allow our community to submit complaints of police abuse, misconduct, and brutality without fear and with the confidence that their complaints will be reviewed independently. As of today, our core demands have yet to be addressed by council or any department from the City of Oxnard. As a result, the community held a hearing of the People's Tribunal for Justice on Wednesday, September 19, 2012, where we discussed this ongoing crisis of police abuse and brutality in Oxnard. We were able to document over 30 individual incidents of police abuse and misconduct, as well as an additional 10 community members that were direct witnesses to these traumatic incidents. Our tribunal also heard testimony from the family members and close friends of Robert Ramirez, who shared the memories of what a beautiful, kind, and peaceful young man the real Robert was. The photo released to the media is clear evidence that his bruises, lesions, and facial trauma were the result of violence at the hands of the Oxnard police. Based on this photo and the circumstances detailed by witnesses to the crime, the People's Tribunal for Justice has issued its verdict. We, as a self-determined community, reserve the right to uphold our own standards of justice. As such, our Tribunal for Justice hereby finds Chief Jerry Williams and the 7 unidentified officers guilty of the death of Robert Ramirez. The People's Tribunal for Justice has determined that the aforementioned individuals are clear fugitives who have refused to answer for their aggression and hostility towards us. We call on the 7 officers and their leadership to come forward for this crime. Failure to come forward will result in our continued advocacy on this issue, including disseminating material that will make clear that fugitives from community justice must be challenged and held to account. The People's Tribunal for Justice also calls on the City Council to address the issue of police brutality as a core problem in our community by holding an official hearing at a meeting of the Council. If the Council must separate the particular case of Robert due to its ongoing investigation, then a general hearing during a Council meeting may be scheduled. The Council can no longer use this as an excuse to abandon its responsibility to investigate the pathological, violent approach of the police under its charge. We also demand a public update confirming that the Chief has contacted and invited the Attorney General to investigate Robert Ramirez's case, as declared in her letter dated September 12, 2012. For further correspondence and/or to respond to this letter, please contact the Colectivo Todo Poder al Pueblo at 805-328-4763 or through email at poder805@riseup.net. That's PODER 805@RISEUP.net. This letter is from Francisco Ramiro on behalf of Colectivo Todo Poder al Pueblo. This epidemic of police brutality is not okay. It needs to stop. It needs to stop at the city level, at the county level, the state level, and the national level. And so this county needs to have the district attorney charge the officers guilty of murder of Robert Ramirez on June 23, 2012. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any other speakers for public comments, so board comments, Supervisor Foy.
Thank you. Appreciate that. My comment on the gentleman's comment is this county is known for public safety and known for the tremendous officers that serve in the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department High Patrols. I do take offense to some of that they talk about abuse. So anyway, let me just say I had the opportunity to go to our Reseda, our retirement retreat that they have every year. I know Supervisor Bennett's been to that too, and kind of a sobering message in the sense of where the market's going, what's happening, and not expecting tremendous returns, even though the market is up right now. Hopefully they'll be wrong, and we'll see some returns, because that does have an effect on our costs here in this county. I do want to thank Oxnard. They were the last city to finalize the funding for what we've done, what we started here, which is the courthouse. Had a meeting with the judges here this morning, and judges are working on everything they can do to make it more effective and efficient, which is to help our sheriffs, police departments get through their courts faster, which is great. And the other, I had the opportunity to go through Moore Park County Parade Day. In the parade, it was kind of fun. It was always a great. The small cities are always a lot of fun. I had the opportunity one time to go back east and do that in a very small town, and it became an all-day event. It's when the small cities really enjoy their parades. It's just always great. So, and then lastly, the CHP in Moore Park is going to offer traffic safety programs for teenage drivers and their parents. I think we've seen also, we're going to see today a little bit about how our traffic accidents are down in this county, and part of what these officers are doing is trying to get these kids to understand, drinking and driving, and how to avoid injury and death. So, good stuff happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Long?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Somewhere here, I have a list to the adjourn in memory of some folks in the 3rd District, and I had a couple quick opportunities to one was to attend and celebrate the 10th anniversary of our CSUCI at a dinner Saturday night. It was very well attended and really lots of fun, and it was great to hear from those in attendance their stories of how they were there when the university was first envisioned, and lots of good warm feelings for the university. It was a nice event. And then on Sunday for the Child Development Resources, their 5th annual, this was an annual event they do where they invite children and families that they work that are part of the CDR family to a free event at the Camarillo Ranch House. And they have entertainment and food, and they have lots of vendors, one of which is our very own mobile dental unit, which lots of our local dentists are supportive of, and right there, children come and they get to look at them and talk to their parents and assess them, give them some quick direction. Dr. Mark Lizagore is one of the, I know, real founders and movers of that mobile dental facility, and it is an area that we're all very aware of as one of those gaps in healthcare. That our very youngest children don't always have access to good quality dental care, and that it does become, in many cases, significant health problems for them at a young age. So I know there's great interest in both making sure the mobile unit continues to be able to operate in the county, and also for us to see ways that we can help to bring that piece of healthcare into our larger umbrella. So it was, I enjoyed being there, and I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Parks.
Got to enjoy being a keynote speaker for the promotional ceremony for the fire department, and seeing these individuals being able to promote up the ranks, and it was a pleasure to be there, and particularly with all the families and cute kids. Also attended a AAUW breakfast, which also was really informative, talking about particularly their legal fund that helps women who have experienced sexual harassment as well as in the workplace. And I want to call out particularly some people of our county who attended a SCAG presentation, including our CEO, Mike Powers, our District Attorney, Greg Totten, our Probation Director, Mark Varela, and Captain Eric Dowd from the Sheriff's Department. And it was featuring the entire AB 109 realignment. But what was special was that all the counties in the SCAG region, all 6 counties, had presentations, and it was good to hear what the other counties are doing. And I must say that we are taking the lead. We're not just fighting the state on this, we're actually working hard to be proactive, and I think also having a lead time of proactiveness has helped put us in good stead also. And you really realize that the counties can do it better than the state in terms of housing inmates. I've always been alarmed to see how many prisoners come from the state addicted. You would think that, you're in jail, how can they continue decades-long addictions while in jail? But I know that we have better handles on that particular issue, among other things, in our jails. The key, obviously, is that with the state realignment and us getting the prisoners, that we get the funding guaranteed too. So we need to do everything we can to work to assure that funding. Also wanted to hand out to you, and we have interest in our county from the Santa Ynez Band of Chumash Indians in acquiring some property over at the Santa Susana Field Lab owned by NASA. And so that's something to be aware of. They happen to be the same tribe that have the Chumash Casino out in Santa Ynez. And so I've asked County Council for some of the legal issues behind what the county has in our jurisdiction if the Santa Ynez Band does acquire land, and is there a possibility they could have a casino, and what we could do about that. I also wanted to announce a great event in Thousand Oaks, the first of its kind, Bark in the Park. And this is a fundraiser, and it's over at the dog park at Waverly. They have small dog races, dog agility demonstration, pet adoptions, and also our wonderful Sheriff's Canine Unit will be there, and some autographs from Dodger legends Steve Garvey, Steve Yeager, and more. So that event is October 13th, 10 to 2 at the dog park, and it's sponsored by the Conejo Recreation and Park District. And then I also wanted another great event coming. It's a series on Boomer Boot Camp. This is for people who are in the Boomer generation, and they have a series of speakers at the, don't know who that would be, and it has a series of speakers at the Shear Auditorium in Thousand Oaks, October 10th, 17th, and 24th in the evening, and featuring guest speakers discussing things like looking ahead and building blocks for good old age, as opposed to bad old age, and money for life. So it's a great series, and I think as people, again, become prepared and better informed, they'll have a better life in their older years. And then also wanted to mention AB 2442. This was by Doss Williams. It did get vetoed by Governor Brown. The intent of it was to establish the California Hope Public Trust to manage state-owned properties deemed suitable for development, with the goal of increasing the value and those funds going to the UC and CSUs. However, it would have also, unfortunately, made the sale of State Conservancy, Fish and Game, and Wildlife Conservation Board owned land easier. So that would have been an unfortunate result. So that was vetoed, and hopefully as that unintended consequence might be removed from a future bill, we'll be in better stead in that sense. And then finally, I wanted to mention what we all know as the Lieberman Addenda. No? Well, the Lieberman Addenda comes from Dr. Lieberman in Lake Sherwood, and he came up with the idea that in our community beautification events, where we bring in our trash haulers to take large bulky items and green waste and electronic waste, that we also add household batteries, fluorescent tubes that can also be disposed of there. And the county took a look at it, incorporated it into the Lake Sherwood Community Beautification event. And now that Lieberman addenda is in all community beautification events, they found it could be done for free. And so when we do have those in communities, fluorescent light bulbs, compact fluorescent light bulbs, household batteries can also be dropped off. And that's a great thing to see, not only for everyone in the county. It's also nice to see that a citizen can bring forward ideas and have that nice effect. And with that, I would also ask that we close in honor of the people on this list, and calling out one special individual, Alice Rishoff, the mother of Louise Rishoff, a former councilwoman from Agoura, and she, I know, will be very much missed. So with that, concludes my comments.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Bennett?
Thank you. And Supervisor Long and Zaragoza, that Boomer conference, I heard they're going to teach people how to throw those poles there at the game, so I wouldn't miss it.
And Kathy's going to win.
Saturday I had the opportunity to attend, they rolled out 14 new works of mural art celebrating new bike rack and bus shelters and the whole concept of mass transit in downtown Ventura. It was a great event. They had a 1920s band playing and just good activity. Saturday night was St. Vincent's de Paul black and white dinner. I know Supervisor Zaragoza's staff. I had the pleasure of sitting with his staff at that dinner. It was the black and white dinner is a fundraiser in Oxnard to support the winter warming shelter that every year is relied upon to get people someplace when it is colder and wetter here in the wintertime. I was also able to stop by the Humane Society, doing a great job, located up in Ojai. They had a fundraiser down here at Arroyo Verde Park, and it was a great fundraiser for the Humane Society. And then Search and Rescue up in Ojai had their annual fundraiser up in Ojai, and it was very heartwarming. Most of you may have remembered hearing about the 4 members of the Sierra Club that they literally saved their lives. They were freezing to death up on the mountain, and these guys found them at the last minute. A man who is from Thailand came back to be here for their fundraiser, and I got to introduce him, and he was part of our grand prize raffle and all. But he said something, very heartwarming. He said, after they saved my life, he said, I then went home and cared for my mother until she passed away. And he said, I am so grateful that I was able to be there for my mother's death, and that I'm alive today. And, it's very interesting, but most people don't say thank you to Search and Rescue after the fact. They sort of take it for granted that some emergency personnel, but those people do all of that for free. They're volunteers. They come out. So at 2:30 in the morning, they were pulling these guys down off the mountain in the middle of a snowstorm, and probably where they lived it was raining and it was snowing like crazy up there, and so it was just a great event to sort of celebrate it, and really nice of him to have come back. And then I want to make sure everybody knows that Employee Health Services presents their annual vaccinations, so people and staff listening to this, flu vaccinations today from 1:30 to 4:30, and tomorrow, October 10th, 8:30 to 11:30, and it's first come, first serve. So if you want your flu vaccination, it's good for all of us to have everybody immunized, so everybody else stays healthy and everybody else stays on the job more. Thanks. Oh, and I have one adjourned in memory that I'd like to call out. Ida Butcher, she was a longtime member of the Ventura League of Women Voters. Really talented woman, graduated from Smith College, continued at Harvard, went to Yale Medical School, Department of Public Health, got her master's in public health. She was really a bright, talented, and very pleasant woman, and we're all going to miss her in the city of Ventura. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
On this list.
I also like to share this. Last week, I attended the Binational Health Week in Oxnard, informing the public about health and prevention issues, and this is done in Spanish and English with the Consulate of Mexico. And I just want to thank Mike Powers and Dr. Bob for attending and all the good information that they shared with the public. This is, they call it a binational, but I think they should call it multinational, because my understanding now is that Canada is involved and quite a few South American countries that are involved in this health prevention program. So it was well attended, and I just want to commend Michael and Dr. Bob for being there. And I also attended the Academy class graduation for the Sheriff Department. I'd like to commend Sheriff Dean for doing an excellent job over at the Camarillo Airport. And we had graduates not only from our county deputies, but also from Oxnard PD and Santa Barbara. So it was well attended, and those guys looked sharp as anything. Really, really great. And then also I attended the MVP airline. There's a new airline now that's going to be doing some flights from Oxnard to Las Vegas. And I'd just like to commend Jorge, and also Todd, from the Airport Authority for doing an excellent job on that. And as well attended, I understand they're going to have a couple of flights, or 2 or 3 flights a week now. They're going to expand to, before they even started, to more days because of the reservations, from flights from Oxnard to Las Vegas and Laughlin, and probably, hopefully, maybe to other parts of the state. Additionally, I attended the multicultural event in Oxnard at Plaza Park. We had over 1,000 people attend the multicultural event, and it was just great to see the children coming out with the little flags. There was a little kid probably about that size, really tiny, maybe 2 or 3-year-old, and with the little flags and so forth. And it was just a great family and children event there at Plaza Park in Oxnard. And last night I also attended the Civic Night at the Knights of Columbus, and Judge Harry Welch did an excellent presentation. He's our Ventura County Superior Court judge, and he talked a little bit about his election, how here at the last minute, they have so many days to sign up for candidates, and at the last minute, 15 minutes before the closing time, somebody went and contested him, and he says he never ran a campaign till last night, and it was just funny to hear what he had to do, and how he had to campaign and walk and meet more people than he shook a lot of hands and so forth. They did an excellent job, in Harry Welch, last night at the Knights of Columbus. And also, last time I know that Mark is here, and I don't want to embarrass him, but when we did the day of caring, it only because he's an agency head, but he was out there, him and his family, over at the Nyland Acres Annex, planting fruit trees, him and his family and his dad. So I want to thank Mark for being there and helping us out. And I failed to do that last time, but I wanted to remember to share that. To have an agency head from the county is really important. I know Mike was there before, but he's just the CEO. And also we had, I know that Supervisor Parks was talking about cleanup. We had a cleanup in El Rio and Nyland Acres this last weekend. And Stan Higgs from my office was in charge of that, and Lourdes also from my office. And they had a great event. They had so many loads of trash and so forth, people cleaning up. And we had one individual that was running around back and forth in his pickup. And we wanted to find out who this guy was. And his name was Rudy Garcia. And he was just running from house to house, knocking on doors, says, "You want me to take your trash over to the containers?" And my understanding is that his wife works for the county. So it was just that kind of involvement, that's so special for the community to help, the folks clean up. So, and after that, then we had people like Mike Barber and Republic and so forth donated some dollars to have a barbecue. So they had a barbecue for the residents there. So my understanding is 100-some people? At least 125 people attended, And of course, 50 were there for the barbecue. No. But we had a great time, and I just want to thank, we had a busy weekend. And also I want to adjourn in memory of one individual, can you believe that, from Oxnard, South SNU. And that's all I have. And our next item then would be our regular 24, Roberta? Yes. And that's Mr. Mark Varela, probation.
Good morning. I was actually going to be joined by Assistant Sheriff Gary Pentis, and I understand he's en route from Camarillo as we speak. So if we can wait just a few minutes for him to arrive.
You want to, okay.
And then come
We'll
back.
take,
Okay, great. Thank you.
we'll take 25 then. Yeah. Jeff.
Good morning, Chair Zaragoza, board members,
Good morning.
Mr. Powers. For the record, Jeff Pratt with Public Works. I'm standing in for Phil Nelson, Engineering Services, because he's in training today. Before I start this item, the auditor's office would like me to point out a minor correction I'm sure you all caught. It's in the table on page 2. It has to do with the budget org number. The 4033 ending that top table should be 4071. I knew it. Sorry about that. So with that, this item is before you. We're asking you to accept 2 grants, one from CMAC, one from T, to use on a bike trail in Piru. It's a third phase of a project that has, well, obviously 2 previous phases and probably 2 more. We're going to be about a mile short with this one of Rancho Camulos, which is the eventual destination. This particular piece is about 0.8 miles long, and it's the first departure from the rail bed and will run along the 126. It won't quite make the undercrossing that we needed to go over to Rancho Camulos. And we're using some creative money moving with the transportation department. Previously, the match for these were funded through RDA. RDA was, as you know, it's been removed. The money that transportation is matching, approximately $130,000, will be given back to transportation through VCTC. I think your commission may be aware of that, the commission members, on a couple of other projects, Lomita bike lanes and the Santa Clara bike lanes in Oxnard. So with that, I'd ask for your approval of this, and I've got, I'm accompanied by staff if you have any questions.
All right,
Any questions?
Yeah, just real quick. I didn't see a map in this piece to know where exactly. I tried to go out there and look at what you were. Which I was out in that area anyway, so I thought I'd go out and take a look at it.
Sorry.
What was going on? But this is a very expensive piece for that 0.8 miles, right? It seems pretty expensive.
The construction about $900,000. Right?
Huh?
The construction alone is about $900,000.
$900,000 out of the.
That's our estimate, and we'll be back to your board with the contract award.
Out of the 1.2,
1.2, 1.1, 1.15.
okay, so a few $100,000 is
design,
engineering, environmental, and all that kind of stuff. So, anyway, I guess I was just. This is part of another piece. There's been pieces, as I guess I saw out there, that we're finishing, and there's going to be a whole lot more pieces coming on this. Or?
Well, it just depends on the funding, but as funding comes in, it might be the case that we can finish the rest in one. It's about a mile left to do.
Yeah, okay. I guess I just, I don't know, I just look at it, what we're saying is we're using some funds. I'm glad to hear that, because I didn't hear that we're using regular road funds that now it sounds like are going to be repaid. And that
That's
was part of
correct.
my concern, is that something else wasn't going to get done, because a lot of the roads need some work out there too, that we could have used some of that money for. But, okay, sounds good.
We have a question, Auditor?
Jeff, thank you for making the correction on page 2. Page 1 also requires a correction under the recommendation number 2, the budget transaction. The first line should be
that's
budget
right.
organization 1050-4071, and the third line increase 4071 Piru Bike Path Phase 3 instead of services and supplies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You caught it.
Thank you.
Okay,
I make a motion to approve the recommended action with those noted
with the corrections.
changes, corrections. And it's an investment. It's an investment in the future that years ago, and lots of discussions with many agencies, but certainly with VCTC, the Rails to Trails, and the goal to get paths for biking and walking, and this is another phase of it. And understand.
I think it's funny, it says except the Congestion Management Air Quality Fund. It's going to stop a lot of congestion, I can tell out there, yeah.
Someday.
Well, you guys will find.
Someday we're going to connect to Santa Clarita. Someday. Move the recommended action with the changes.
You got a first and a second. Is it working?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, our next item is Sheriff's Office, and that's to accept a grant, and I think Renee?
Good morning, members of the board. Good morning,
morning.
Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Powers. I, on behalf of Sheriff's Department, Forensic Services Bureau, I would like to ask for your permission to accept actually 3 grants. One of them was on consent agenda, and this one was approved. And I have 2 additional that, in addition to laboratory instrumentation, overtime, and some training money, we are requesting to establish positions. The NIJ grant, the DNA backlog reduction grant, we are aiming for hiring forensic scientists on a fixed term position. And solving DNA cases, this is another grant, the BJA grant. We are asking to hire forensic laboratory technician and also 2 part-time investigators that will be conducting investigation of cold cases. The forensic laboratory technician, it's a fixed-term position for 18 months, but it's enough for us to finish a validation of very valuable instrument that we are bringing online. It's a kind of step up in a technology, in solving DNA, in analyzing DNA cases. And with the backlog that we have, with the number of cases that we are analyzing on a daily basis, we were not able to afford to delegate, to designate one of our staff to spend time on validation. Therefore, hiring forensic laboratory technician with the full credentials, it will help us to continue doing our regular casework, and at the same time, we will be able to implement newer technology, which we are all really looking forward to.
Thank you, Renee. Any questions, Renee?
Could you give us just a brief overview of what your backlog looks like in terms of how many? And
Yes, the backlog in a DNA section right now is almost 300 cases. At this moment, we are prioritizing the very violent crime cases, and those are on the top of, I would say, expression on a front burner that we are addressing, because some of them require immediate action, or some of them, when we get a hit, called this hit, they need to be worked out as soon as possible. We are very successful with analyzing burglary cases. We're getting several hits. This Monday, we got 5 CODIS hits on variety of burglary cases. So those cases are also our priority as much as we can get into. But in general, the total backlog, if we wanted to reduce to 0, it's 300 cases.
Great. Well, I look forward to that time when we can get that reduced to 0. At least have tried all of them, and investigated all of them.
That would be our dream. That is a real dream. And I always wished for a situation that case comes in to the laboratory and it's immediately assigned to the analyst. That would be the perfect, ideal, the best situation you can only imagine. Maybe one day, maybe.
Oh, it will happen. It's just a matter of when, so we'll get there. Thank you for this and that.
And I just want to share that I had the opportunity to take a tour of your lab, and the outstanding work that you're doing is just fantastic with the DNA and it almost seems like CSI if I'm looking at that. If you have not taken that tour over at the lab, it's just phenomenal. It's just, you're doing excellent work,
And what makes even more the dedication of people that
Your
are
staff.
forensic scientists that are working. Each of them takes such a pride with putting their name on a case, on the report and the courtroom testimony, and the heart, how much they put into their work.
Well, they have a good
is-
role model for that, and that's you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Boyd.
I was going to
Thank
say, also, as you go through this, doesn't this help us get our jails emptied by getting this stuff quicker and the courts and everything? There's a backlog of all this, has a lot of problems for all of us, doesn't it?
It's a huge help for the district attorney's office because they can process, they can file cases, they can get, if we were able to deliver faster this information, it would definitely help them. It would help all law enforcement agencies in Ventura County.
Great. Well, okay. Well, appreciate it, and hopefully this makes a big difference.
Okay.
We'll move the item.
Okay, we got first, second. First by Marks, second by Mr. Foy.
It's nice to see the federal funds that are available
Okay.
for this.
We're on now, Roberta.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So that's approved. Thank you so much. Okay, item 27 is correspondence.
Move to receive and file.
Okay, so got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that's approved, and now we have the sheriff is here, Pentes. Let me see. Item 25, Mark, and
24.
24.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
Mr. Powers. For the record, Mark Varela, Chief Probation Officer here and also Chair of the Community Corrections Partnership Ventura County, here to ask that your board approve a modification to this year's Public Safety Realignment Plan to move funds from our Local Revenue Fund 2011 Community Corrections Sub-Account over to the Sheriff's Office to cover costs associated with their increased population as a result of AB 109. I'm going to hand it over to Assistant Sheriff Gary Pentis to talk a little bit about what we're experiencing here in our local jails with this new population that we're getting.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for putting up with my tardiness on the freeway.
It's the traffic.
That was part of it. Actually, to start off with, I'd like to say that this is one of the pleasures of a difficult experience. It's sweeping changes that we've had to deal with in the justice system, and the pleasure is there's been such a foundation of support within our county that actually even in what sometimes is an adversarial system between our office and the public defender as we move cases through the system, they've been one of my most valued partners and have spoken up for me at the budget committee meetings. So there's a real basic understanding of where what we're tackling. We have different opinions on how to get there and what might be the outcomes, but it's been a pleasure to work with this group. The importance here and the real threat to the county of Ventura is that funding from the state. The law's been changed. We've started to see the impacts of it. We have about 16% of our population are inmates due to the change in this law. Whether they're people that are serving their parole time here, they've been revocated, whether these are the people where the change in the penal code section has now sentenced them to county jail, or these are the probationers that are getting flashed that they now have increased responsibility on managing. That 16% is, we have about 250 inmates today in our system. We have different trigger points for safety and security, the safety of these inmates and the safety of our staff. We had about a 1,700 population range for where these trigger points we thought might hit. They really hit at about 1,650. And one of the complications isn't just putting many people in a smaller space and tempers can flare, but really the complication is the makeup of our prisoners and their gang involvement and the difficulty of keeping them separated to keep violence down in our jail. Our assaults in our jail, inmate on inmate or involving staff, is up 100%, which causes increased medical. So that's one of our concerns. The staffing increase we're asking for is we've hit that trigger point. It's not a general fund hit. It's hit through the state monies, but the protection of those monies coming to the county is essential. And it's essential for many reasons. This change has increased for the sheriff, not only a staffing, but one of my biggest concerns is the medical issues. We have a range of an outlier of 12 years, 8 months sentenced to county jail, to the majority of our sentences are 2 and 3 years. That changes our preventative care that we're going to have to provide and the medical care of extended stay inmates that we must provide, or our liability on that side shoots way up. That is a factor in with this realignment money. I think it's pretty obvious that the state changed this law to solve some of their problems and disperse this issue among 58 counties. This staffing side also is part of the medical concern on the need for increased medical care in our facility. As we see it, we've started programs, we've started partnerships that I think maybe this pushed us to do that maybe we could have done before, where we have behavioral health people in our facility working with inmates before they get released. While we have them detox, they're sober in our jails. And if we keep security and safety there, they'll remain sober in our jails. We have probation officers who are now working within our facility, dealing with their clients before they're released on the street. Because my bottom line is public safety. If we can dent recidivism rate, that increases public safety. It also opens up more bed space and saves valuable dollars. It all works together intertwined. So these program changes, the way we administer these programs is really an attempt to lower the recidivism rate because they're spending less time in jail. If they're spending less time on jail, that means they could produce more victims, which impacts our justice system, every partner in it. So our goal is to lower that recidivism rate, and part of that is our programming in jail and these partnerships that have been forged, starting at the gate and working through release on the outside to try to keep our community safer for a lower cost. One thing I wanted to bring up is we predict in the next fiscal year that we'll hit another trigger point. And we are being extremely imaginative with other than jail sentences being incarceration. We're looking real hard at EM. I'll say we've been experimenting with it. We've had 20, 25 people on it. We've gotten the staffing out of the CEO's office to put 2 deputies to manage that, and it's been successful. Our concern is the appropriateness, the risk analysis model on who we're going to put on it to keep our community safe. Because the last thing we want is to put someone on EM and have them break into your neighbor's home or your home while they're on EM, and we feel they should have had a bed in the jail, keeping them segregated if their behavior is not going to change. So we're trying everything we can with alternatives to custody, because next fiscal year I think we're going to hit the 1850. 1850 is our tops. Yes, they're doing less time in jail, but if we don't make an impact to recidivism rates, the numbers of the people we have traditionally sent to prison that's been changed by this law will hit that 1,800 range by next year. And we've been fairly competent on hitting our numbers and predicting on what the state said would happen to us on basically who from Ventura County has been incarcerated in prison in the past. And it shows a nice timeline for us. So Eric Nowd's done just a fantastic job with the predictions there and most of the budget work on this.
Deputy Sheriff Pentas, our CPCs, what it is?
CCP.
It's probably way ahead from other counties, right? Because the partnership that we have compared to the county to the south of us, where we have all the cooperation with all the agencies working together to help our inmates, we're way ahead of other counties, is my understanding. Is that correct?
This isn't a soundbite because I travel around the state more than I want to because I have a lot of work to do here. But I've found that we're ahead of the game, and I think it's because of our basis of our culture in this county. There are a lot of counties that are fighting. There's also a lot of counties where people are just being naysayers. It's a law change. We have to make this work. What's the best way to deal with it and keep us safe? There's still people out there yelling, this is the worst thing that ever happened, right. Doom and gloom. Well, let's work on making this successful. It's the law, whether we agree with it or not. So I think we have that in our CCP.
The CCPs, you have the police chiefs, all 10 cities, you have probation, you have sheriff, everybody working together to solve this problem.
Including community-based organizations that are helping out,
It's really working out great. That's fantastic.
which is a big part of trying to keep our community safe.
Supervisor Bennett?
Just two things I want to comment on. You started off talking about the fact that we're ahead because of the culture of cooperation that we have here. And I just want to emphasize how important that has been for the citizens of Ventura County. Over and over again, we've seen that. And it takes professionalism from everybody, but certainly the Sheriff Department has to be one of the real leaders in that cooperation for that to take place. And when I talk with other county supervisors in other counties, the amount of infighting that's going on and all of that is enormous, and the unwillingness to trust each other and cooperate. So I want to compliment you, compliment probation, compliment the public defender, district attorney, fire, everybody that really participates in that. That's one thing. The second thing is it's really obvious that the Sheriff's Department is very open to looking at the broad range of options that we have to consider here, and not just look at, the traditional sheriff narrow point of view, lock them up, and everybody else should take care of the other stuff. The fact that you're willing to embrace and consider and focus on trying to decrease recidivism is a real tribute to I think a new culture that we have in the Sheriff's Department now, and I think it's something that we have to recognize, and it couldn't be more timely, if you can imagine. Couldn't be more timely with this all coming out. So I just want to call those two out as real positives. This is a challenge. I like the way you approached it, which was, hey, it's in these challenges that you really learn and you really, find yourself pushing to get to a better place. And so I think that the approach you have to this significant challenge is the right one. We're going to make it work. We're going to work hard at it and make it work. And it's certainly to the benefit of the citizens of Ventura to take that attitude rather than the attitude that's taking place other places. So my compliments.
And as you mentioned, too, working with a public defender, too, is, he's one of your buddies, which I think is important.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with that, actually, because I've been on the investigative side most of my career, and we've done a lot of battles. So they've been really good partners, and I've actually enjoyed their company. Because it's not about the traditional sense of how we deal with business.
Supervisor Parks and then Lawn.
And I see Captain Dowd is here, and just how much I appreciated him coming also to SCAG to make that presentation to get a good understanding of what's happening in our county compared to the other counties. But some counties, I think Los Angeles has a prisoner in there that was brought back for 28 years, and you have these long time, with long time having to stay in the jails. It has interfered with being able to put new prisoners in. And if you have enough that are there that long, it's going to actually really start clogging up the jails. So I don't know if it's something we do, with the state legislature or something, but, it's ridiculous to, these jails weren't meant for more than a year or so. To have someone staying in there for decades is just going to eventually clog up the jails even more so. So I don't know if there's something that we can do about that. One of the questions I have is in regards to the positions you're looking at, sheriff technicians and all. Why that instead of, for example, correctional officers?
Well, our sheriff service techs function as corrections officers. That's our civilian non-safety member.
All right, it's
true.
another word for correctional officers.
Exactly.
Okay, thank
and
you.
that's our economy of trying to get the right person doing the right job.
I really do appreciate that, because once you get the sworn officers in there, it's a little bit more expensive, so it's good that we're adding those instead. So I appreciate that. And also, just to echo Supervisor Bennett's, the idea that we are focusing so much attention on reducing that recidivism, it makes it safer for our community, it makes it less costly, and being able to do those programs in the jail and having a better handoff when they do get out is just so important to reducing that. So just appreciate the good work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Supervisor Lawn.
Thank you. Also, I know that the cooperation that we have around the table has really served us well, and I appreciate that all of the leadership team has come to that table with that as their mission. I think that we're going to continue to be challenged in this, and with these positions, normally, or otherwise, I would say, with other departments, these may be grant fixed-term positions based on the length of a grant, perhaps, or the purpose of the funding. But I see in this one that this is a long-term road we're on. This is not. You're right, Mr. Pentis. It's not going to change, no matter whatever gnashing of teeth goes on at the state level from other agencies. This is the direction we're in. So I think I have to expect that these positions will be monitored and evaluated as we roll through the continued realignment path here, and the positions will be managed as the sheriff manages the entire workforce. Looking at the definition of the assignments from the SSTs and the deputy sheriffs, again, you manage the department. I expect that's why they've been, why those numbers were put forward as to this number of deputy sheriffs versus this number of SSTs. We've had ongoing discussions, I think, for years about SSTs stepping in and doing more of the work for a variety of reasons. One, certainly the impact to the bottom line. But I look to you, I trust, I believe that these assignments are according to what the needs are and what the operational model is for the jail. I think where we're going to be challenged, as I've heard from, and I know that Mark is on top of this, and there's discussion with the CCP, is the accountability and the future measurements and reports to come forward as to what is recidivism, how is it going to be measured, how are we going to be measured up against it when it comes to any further realignment and state dollars or programs. Not that I expect any state dollars, but well, we better expect some, right?
I expect them.
We better expect some. Well, yeah. So all that to say, I continue to be creative and think outside the box and look at other areas that we may have opportunities for either housing or programming outside of the footprint, because it's I don't think it's going to change. I agree with Supervisor Parks when we look at these long-term sentence inmates coming back. That's not the model we agreed to, frankly. And that's where I know at the state level through the associations and otherwise we're pushing back on corrections to say, these are the folks you need to keep. You don't need to send them to us. Yeah. That's not what the deal was. Mm-hmm. So I collectively will continue to do that and make sure that in our legislative platform that whatever language we need to make sure we're positioned well on that we do so. And the medical needs side of it, I know that you're in full discussion and looking at how do we manage that, because that's where we have costs that can escalate quickly.
Supervisor
that was a lot of rambling. I'm not sure there's a question in there, but
it's a day.
I think you know what I said there.
Supervisor Parks.
I just wanted to also, that specific call out to community partnerships and how important that is. And a really interesting study that I, just heard about and I'm pretty excited about is called the $1 Million Blocks. And it was a study in Brooklyn that found that in certain blocks of areas was where a significant amount of the people who are breaking the law are coming from, and just starting to focus almost from an urban land use perspective of what can we bring into those areas so that these people don't continue that cycle of, getting into that area and creating crime. Maybe there are things that can be done in terms of, working with community partnerships. And we can identify probably the same thing in the county of Ventura, those areas, and to be proactive and to break that cycle, because once you have, members of a family creating crime, you're very likely going to, continue that through the generations. And it's a really interesting, I think, look at it is going to the source, essentially. And so there's a lot of things out there that we can be looking at doing, but the main thing is, I think, as we mentioned, is trying to stop is it like 70% recidivism, and particularly with the ones coming out from the state prison.
Yeah, and if there was, part of your question in there to assure you that we shaved some of the positions off there because we think the trigger point's going to bounce low and back, so I've supplemented with overtime to not get a new allocation with the hopes that if some of these programs start working, we can stall off some of the numbers, or if we feel more comfortable with EM applications. And Supervisor Parks, I attribute that statement. I like the way the health department looks at an environmental scan for problems. I once used in Ojai where there's a whack-a-mole. You're playing that game, and every time a gopher. And I never liked that as a cop, where we're always responding to this problem but never really solving it. Because we're solution-based for community safety. You got to figure out where the plug to the machine is. Otherwise, they keep popping up somewhere else. And we do have studies on where our population, where our inmates are coming from, and where programming is needed. And we are pushing CBOs to address these areas of concern, whether it's high in substance abuse, high in gang involvement. And those are very important triggers to find, because we can't just keep attacking the mole that's popping his head up in your garden. I completely hear what you're saying, and to be efficient, you have to be proactive.
You would imagine these are underserved populations to begin with, less parks, less programs, less opportunities for jobs.
It's very obvious to all of us. If you rode in a patrol car, you see it every day.
Supervisor Lund.
And I think where we're seeing that, and Mark and all of the team, is in the work that's been done with the Alliance through the gang intervention and that model of engaging the community and the parents and the schools and the CBOs, and through the Cal grant that we're taking out to the Santa Clara Valley. So it's certainly being done at the youth or gang level, that younger population, but there's certainly it's applicable to all the population, if that $1 million block, as you say. We know that's...
And the reason they call it a $1 million block is because of how much money it costs the system for the people that are
and we know we have percentage of offenders who are repeat offenders, who are those high costs to us that we have to deal with.
Just to add on just real quick, and Under Sheriff Penna said it so well, but the CCP process itself, I think, by the time this gets to your board here, there's been a real thorough vetting.
Right.
Both the CCP, the subcommittees, the staffing levels that are here today, and the Sheriff's been very open to that input and developing this. So a lot of work's gone into getting to this point. And we talk about the partnerships and the collaboration. That's important during these difficult issues, but it's also because some of this is uncharted territory. It's one thing if we've been down the road and we'll just work. You need to be flexible and evolve as it changes week by week as we look at these new people who come down. And so we really see that has a very nimble group as well. So really want to commend them for that. And on the cost piece too, one of the things we're trying to do is to look at the true cost, not subsidize some of the work that the state has shifted down to us. Make sure we have a true sense of that. So as we advocate at the state level, we'll know what the real cost is and what the funding level needs to be. So thank you.
So, Ms. Pentas and Mark and Sheriff, thank you for your good work, and the CCP for doing an outstanding job in forming this partnerships and really helping us. And like you said, we're the vanguards. We're ahead of the rest of the state. So I want to thank you for your good work.
I don't think any of us like to lose.
Okay, so
thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Is it working? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 100%, Mark. Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute break. morning. We're going to resume the Board of Supervisors meeting, and this is time certain 9:45, item 16. This is Public Works. Dave?
Good morning, Chair Zaragoza.
Good morning.
Supervisors, Mr. Powers. For the record, I'm Dave Fleisch with the Transportation Department of the Public Works Agency. Today I'm going to present you a good news story, actually, about reduced traffic accidents, or that in the Transportation Department vernacular called collisions on the Ventura County road network. Before I begin, though, I would like to introduce and thank some of the staff that actually does this safety report I'm going to be talking to you about. And they not only do the report, they also are responsible for compiling and figuring out the things that go on a daily basis with respect to our signage, all kinds of traffic things, anything that we do with signal timing, collisions that happen. And they're sitting behind me, and that's Richard Herrera, who's the traffic engineer, Anthony Gallo, and David Denton and David Torfe, who are the guys actually that go out and spend a lot of time in the field, right there behind the sheriff and the other and the CHP and the fire protection folks that come in when there are collisions. What we're going to talk about briefly today, again, as I said, we use the term collision instead of accident. Even when it involves nothing but one car, it's still considered a collision, so it might seem sort of awkward to use that term, but that's the term that's the term of art for this. There is no specific requirement either at the state level or at the federal level to conduct any sort of safety or collision data analysis. However, since 2004, the Transportation Department of the Public Works Agency has been conducting an annual safety analysis. This analysis examines collision data from the latest 3-year period. Therefore, this last report that we did covered the period of 2009, 2010, and 2011. We receive data internally as we pick up things, but the predominant assessment that we do is on data that we get through the statewide integrated traffic reporting system, which is a decades-old system that the CHP maintains that gives us all of that information on any collisions on county roads. That system allows us to create reports and develop statistics and do the analysis for the collision history that we have. That information, once we get it, is brought into a separate database that we have that gives us the ability and flexibility to do more analysis. We separate those collisions into two categories, those that are at intersections and those that are not at intersections, or what we call segments of roads. Essentially, an intersection is any collision within 150 feet of an intersection. If it's a rear-end collision, or any within 50 feet of an intersection if it's less, if it's within any other type of collision. And for road rate segments, again, we look at those segments that are reported collisions in a 3-year period. And primarily we look at what we call clusters, and those are areas where there's there's multiple collisions in a given area, and then we look at those. Once we've done that analysis, we then look at what treatments or implementing measures we can put in to hopefully mitigate or abate those areas where we have high volumes of collisions. Just a reminder of the percentage of centerline miles of roads by supervisorial district. We talked through the same slide when I gave the pavement presentation a few months ago. It is important to note, though, that for the collision history, it's not just the amount of mileage of roads, it's the kind of roads, it's the kind of incidents that are in each of the districts. For example, in District 5, although it's only 9% of the roads, 34% of the high volume roads in the county are in Supervisor Zaragoza's district.
In fact, I was going to ask you that question, Dave. I noticed that we have 9% of the whole entire zone, that yet we have the most accidents.
Correct.
What's happening?
Again, when you look at the distribution, and that's this next slide here, where the collisions are, based upon if you just look at the number of roads, you would say, well, why is that a problem? Again, in countywide, 40% of or 39% of our roads are what we call on-system roads, or the roads that typically have a higher volume, arterials, collectors, those that move traffic between locations.
Is that because of Vineyard and Rose? And
53% of those 53% of your district are those kind of roads. So you've got a bit more. And again, of the 50 high volume roads, top 50 high volume roads in the county, 34 of them are are in your district.
Or my 9%.
Yes.
Don't make up excuses, just look who's got the lowest.
And we're contiguous to Oxnard.
So, but the real challenge, again, is to look at the why of the accidents. And
That's right.
part of the whole reason we do the studies that we do. We look at things like time of day, time of the week, what kind of collision factors, different types of collisions, what was struck, those sorts of things when we do the analysis.
And David, I understand that District 4 doesn't have any roads, that's why the percentage is so low.
We're still using buggy and care over those trails over there. So.
I have some boxing gloves back here. Would like those.
We started off with...
Jealousy runs deep, man.
Not that we're competitive, but who has the lowest accidents per mile?
I don't know, Supervisor Bennett, who would that be?
I think
Okay, back to square one.
I think it could be a reflection of the driving habits of the supervisors in terms of their leadership.
Just by way of information for you, Fridays are the most collision-prone day. Probably not a surprise. The second most collision-prone day you might think would be Monday, but it's not. It's actually Thursday.
Oh.
So just in the data that we have. And also 5 in the afternoon is the most collision-prone hour, followed by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And most people would think 7 in the morning because that's when people are going to work, but it's quite a ways down the path, actually.
Could you break it down by vehicle in terms of trucks versus cars? I know that like the big semi-trucks, last time I looked there, they had accidents at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and things like that, not in the commute hours.
We haven't really parsed our data out that way because the purpose of this study for us is to look at the collisions on the road and what do we need to do to take care of the road. It is interesting to note, too, that when you start doing the analysis, only a minority of the collisions are because of the road. It's generally driver issues, either making an inappropriate type of action or speeding or being distracted or impaired, all sorts of things. And so we try to look at the road.
So Dave, then you look at the speed limit or the signage and those kind of issues too?
Yes, and when I go through the examples I have here, they'll kind of illustrate that for you.
All right.
Although we do our annual studies over a rolling 3-year period, we took a look over the last 6 years just to kind of see where we were in the county. And what you see on this chart here, this is all collisions. That's whether it was just a property damage to a car, somebody running into a post, or whether it was all the way up to the fatalities. For all collisions, as you see here, in the last 6 years, excuse me, we've had a 32% reduction in all collisions on county roads. Again, these are only the unincorporated roads in the county. I don't have the ability to collect data for Caltrans or for the cities. The top types of collisions or categories of collisions, hitting an object is the number one thing at 38%, followed by a rear ender, and that's what you would expect to see at most of the intersections. And then a broadside or a side swipe are the top 4. For injury and fatal collisions, so that's essentially anything other than property damage, it's only about 1/3 of the collisions involve any sort of injury or fatality. 2/3 of them are property damage only. And of the last 6 years, we've had a 28% reduction in our injury and fatal collisions on Ventura County roads. And it's important to know of those 1,582 collisions you see there in 6 years, only 50 of those were fatalities in a 6-year period. So the number of fatalities on our county roads is relatively small in comparison. And part of that compared to, say, Caltrans is we don't have the high volume, high speed interstates. We have more rural roads, slower speed roads in the in the residential areas and what have you. So you would see a different statistic if you were looking at state highways. And again, the top reasons for collisions, improper turning is the number one at about 1/3 of the collisions, followed by unsafe speed and drivers under the influence. And those 3 make up about 3/4 of the collisions that we have on our county roads. So what do we do once we get that information, and how have we hopefully been able to influence the data that you see, that you've been seeing? We first of all try to look at what the reasons were, and those that were not attributable to the operator, which obviously we can't do much about. That's more of an enforcement and an education issue. But those that are directly related to the road, we look at, and because we have the rural roads that we have, we tend to take a very conservative approach. So any intersection that's had 5 collisions in a 3-year period, or any road segment that's had 6 collisions in a 3-year period, so if you think about that, that's 2 a year. That we look at those, and then we look for clusters. We look for those trends. We look for those things where there may be a reason that we need to do something to the road, either signage or what have you. So once we look at those, then we try to identify what, if anything, there is that was a direct relation to the road. If it's a short-term thing, fairly easy for us to do. We can get at those fairly quickly. Typically, there are things like trimming vegetation, adding additional warning signs, maybe adjusting signal timing, installing some other sort of warning device, rumble strips, those sorts of things. Unfortunately, when you ask about speed, typically, unless we've had a speed study done and we've shown that there's speed reduction on that road, we really can't go and reduce the overall speed on a road. We may want to put a warning sign in that there's a curve or something that people haven't seen and they might want to slow down.
Is that because of the state requirements?
It's both federal and state, the way we conduct the speed studies, and we only have a fairly small number of roads that we actually conduct speed studies on here in the county.
You can reduce it down or up? Or
based upon the speed study, you set the 85th. You identify the 85th percentile of speed, and that's where you set the speed at. So,
and the data comes from us?
Yes, we go out and do a speed count again. David Torfey and David Denton go out and do speed counts on those roads, or speed studies on those roads, and based upon those, we identify those speed limit, or this 85th percentile. Again, so for the more simple things, we can do that. The longer term ones, and those are typically the ones that are much harder to get at for us, major road realignments, installing a traffic signal, those sorts of things that are generally outside of what we have budgetary capability to do. It takes us a longer time. We try to get into the capital improvement program. We try to get some sort of grant funding. So, for example, the primary way we do that is through what used to be called the Hazard Mitigation Program, now called the Highway Safety Improvement Program. We've applied for 15 grants in the last 5 or 6 years. We've gotten 6 of them. 4 of the 6 of those, by the way, are in District 5. So we do try to focus those in the areas where we think it's most needed.
So you're trying to help us there. Good.
Absolutely. Then one of the things that we do also do as part of this is after we've done a treatment, we go back and do the study to see if, in fact, it made a difference. So I have 2 examples here for you. The first one, this is Potrero Road. We conducted a safety study that covered, in 2007, that covered 2004, 5, and 6 data, and it revealed 7 collisions in this particular section of the road. One of those was a DUI, and this is about 2.3 miles east of Hueneme Road. After we reviewed that, we took a look and what could we do to maybe eliminate the collisions or reduce the collisions in this area. We went back and trimmed some vegetation in here and added some additional curve and advisory signs and removed some of the white delineators that you see there. So the after picture looks like this. Again, you could see the chevrons as you go around the corner, the trimmed vegetation. And what happened as a result of this is after the improvements, there were only 3 collisions, and one of those was a DUI in a 3-year period. I'm sorry, there's only 2 collisions, and one of those was a DUI in a 3-year period after we did this. So it obviously had a positive impact on the collisions that were there. From a larger perspective, and again, this is a great example of a huge capital project that has made a huge difference, and that was Lewis Road. Again, as you all are, as your board is aware, we completed this in conjunction with the Cal State Channel Islands being opened. From the 5-year period before the completion of the improvement, there were 58 collisions and 8 fatalities on Lewis Road. Fairly large number when you look at countywide where we were. The collisions peaked in 2005, and there were 16 collisions in this area of Lewis Road. After the improvements, again, as you see here, we did an analysis of this road segment actually for a 5-year period after the road was completed. There were only 32 collisions, but more importantly, no fatalities. And, we can't stop all of the accidents, but if we can certainly reduce or eliminate the fatalities or serious injuries, that's really the key for us. So again, the collisions here declined 45% after the long-term improvements. So the good news story, again, is we're continuing to work this every year. We do a fairly exhaustive study of the safety data that we get, and we try to define those improvements.
You know, that's just, if you go back one, please, but that's just the essence of good local government right there, that most people don't see, but that's what they pay taxes for, and people think it's all not spent well and all that other stuff. I mean, people's lives are saved. I noticed that, compare that to the other one, there was no guardrail in front of the utility poles.
That's right.
So every one of those utility poles was a death trap the minute anybody drifted off the road just a little bit. And then now you got, with the improved picture, you got the guardrail, you got everybody shifted over away from them. You don't have those trees there. I mean, that's good government, and it's got to make you and your staff feel good, and hopefully are motivated in spite of sometimes what public perception is, et cetera. So good work.
Thank you.
The safety, Dave.
You bet. Subject to your questions, that's the end of the brief.
Any questions, Dave? Just excellent presentation. And
Send them all to the 4th District. They'll learn to come there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, appreciate the report and the work. It's good to see
work.
we're tracking that and actually able to measure it. So, thanks.
And Dave, after 5 accidents, you get a signal or what? In an intersection?
That you'd have to check with CHP, sir.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for the good work. And thank you for the staff for being here today.
Motion received and filed.
Great analysis. Thank you.
Okay. Get a second. Okay. So, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's approved. Thank you, David. Okay, our next, let me see, is it 10 o'clock? Yeah. This is time certain, and this is a resolution by
Yes.
Supervisor Long. And
Thank you. Thank you. Board members, thank you. It is that time of year, and it is important that we do this every year. The stories that you'll hear today and the information isn't new to any of us, and it's important that we continue to recognize that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I want to start out, certainly have a resolution, and we have folks here who are going to speak to us about their role in Breast Cancer Awareness Month and the battle that some have fought, and acknowledge that education outreach is the best method to really tackle breast cancer and to get women and men informed on what breast cancer is and what treatments are available and how many of us survive and today stand as an 11-year survivor of breast cancer. I want to hold this up because I know those of you who subscribe to the Star received this, and this was delivered on for Breast Cancer Awareness Month on October 1st, and I called the new editor-publisher of the Star to thank her. I think it was a more than just doing it in pink, but the information that was in this edition that talked about, for instance, Ventura County ranking first in California in the incident of the disease in white women and 7th overall for breast cancer. It was pretty startling. And I also congratulated her for doing the entire edition, including the sports page, which I thought was pretty good, in pink. Again, it's that public education. It's that you pick it up, and I'm sure a lot of folks said, "What is this?" They make a mistake. They probably had a few phone calls around it, but it got people talking and reading and thinking. And if it reached one woman, it was successful. So I'm going to read bits of this resolution. This year marks the 28th year that it is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it is to educate women and men about early detection, diagnosis, and treatment. It impacts lives of many Americans either directly or through diagnosis of family members and friends. Considerable progress has been made over these years in diagnosing this disease and improved treatments, yet it still continues to be a major killer of women in our nation. Our overall death rates, although declining, it is second leading cause of cancer death among women. In California, over 23,000 women, and in Ventura County, 625 will develop breast cancer. Exams, mammograms, detection early, all of the things that we are aware of, and I think we talk about at least this month, but I would hope around throughout the year, as there are a variety of opportunities for the public to engage, whether it's with the American Cancer Society or other groups who really do reach out and promote education and services for women. Mammograms greatly reduce the risk of dying from breast cancer. October 19th this month is National Mammography Day, and women are encouraged to make their mammography appointment with the education and recognition of this day. We all find ways that we take care of our own health, and whether you think about your birthday as the day that you have that tickler that reminds you it's time to go get that annual mammogram or whatever exam you need. Whatever works is what's important for both the prevention and prevention component of this. Women can take additional steps to reduce their risk of breast cancer by not smoking, maintaining healthy weight, eating a well-balanced diet, engaging in physical activity at least 60 minutes or 5 or more days a week, and limiting alcohol consumptions. Those are all basic things for just good health, but certainly a known model that impacts whether or not women are confronted with breast cancer. So raising awareness, talking with family members and friends, prevention, screening, early detection, improve our ability to prevent, detect, treat, and ultimately cure breast cancer. It's my pleasure to be able to introduce this today and to invite up to the podium folks who every day work on cancer awareness and engaging the public and educating the public. So I would invite Jennifer Finnerty, who's the Director of Community Mission, Bernie Glenn, who is the co-chair, American Cancer Society volunteer and co-chair of the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer, of which, if you please, would come on down. Marcy Rodriguez, American Cancer Society volunteer, and I know we have others here from ACS. Sandy Berg is here, who heads up the wonderful gala events, which are always fun. So I invite you to come down. I'm going to step down to present this and ask that you speak to us about this month and the importance of it and what we as a community can do to further educate and engage our public. So, yes, I will. Okay, please.
Good morning. The American Cancer Society would like to recognize and acknowledge the Ventura County Board of Supervisors and Supervisor Kathy Long for recognizing the importance of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The American Cancer Society is the nationwide community-based voluntary health organization dedicated to eliminating cancer as a major health problem by preventing cancer, saving lives, and diminishing suffering from cancer through research, education, advocacy, and service. The American Cancer Society offers free programs and services in nearly every community to help women and men facing breast cancer. Whether you need help understanding the disease, making treatment decisions, dealing with the day-to-day challenges of living with cancer, or finding emotional support, the American Cancer Society is here to help. You may contact us anytime, day or night, for information or support. And I would like to now introduce Bernie Glenn, and she will talk about the role of the American Cancer Society and breast cancer.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here.
Good morning.
The American Cancer Society, Making Strides Against Breast Cancer, is a 5K. It is a non-competitive walk that unites our communities to honor, celebrate breast cancer survivors, to educate women about prevention, early detection, and to raise money to find life-saving research and support programs to eliminate breast cancer. Since 1993, nearly 8 million walkers have raised more than $450 million. Through the Making Strides, Last year, Making Strides events raised more than $60 million to help people stay well, get well, find cures, fight back against breast cancer for both men and women. Ventura's event raised over $62,000, honored 36 breast cancer men and women. We had 784 walkers, 45 teams. The American Cancer Society spends more money on breast cancer research than all the other combined. The funds raised for this walk supports breast cancer research as well as free, it's through the American Cancer Society programs that are free services for breast cancer patients and their families, such as a 24/7 call, toll-free, 1-800. If you know your ABCs, ACS, you can count on one hand, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can teach little ones. They know this number. You can also go online, cancer.org. We also have a Road to Recovery that provides transportation to and from life-saving medical appointments and treatments free by volunteers. We need more volunteers. Reach to Recovery, specially trained breast cancer survivors that provides that one-on-one support and information to newly diagnosed cancer patients. Last but not least, our Look Good, Feel Better program. On that point, I will like to return this back to Jennifer, and she will explain to you about this. But thank you for your time. And I am a survivor, stage 3, going on 12 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Look Good, Feel Better is a free national public service program that teaches female cancer patients how to cope with the appearance-related effects of chemotherapy and radiation. It's non-medical, it's free of charge, it's salon and product neutral. And we have national program partners, the National Cosmetology Association, the Personal Care Products Foundation, and of course us, the American Cancer Society. We have several sessions here in the county, and I thought it might be worthy to mention them. They are conducted by licensed and trained volunteer cosmetologists and estheticians. And we have sessions available on a monthly basis at Community Memorial Health Systems, Ventura County Medical Center, Santa Clara Valley Hospice in Santa Paula, St. John's Regional Medical Center, the Cancer Support Community, formerly known as the Wellness Community in Westlake, Los Robles Regional Medical Center, and the Nancy Reagan Breast Center at Simi Valley Hospital. And each patient receives a kit of brand new donated cosmetics valued at about $400. So just wanted to build some awareness around that program. We really feel it's one of our best quality of life programs, as we find women come in and they're not feeling so good about themselves, and then they leave and someone's taught them how to pencil on an eyebrow or how to put a wig on a bald head. So we're just grateful today for this opportunity to build a little awareness around the American Cancer Society and what we do. And that's all I have.
Supervisor Long, I'd like to, first of all, I was working with throwing all the polls over at with the Celtic folks and the Scottish, but now I want to wear my pink hat. And this is because of I'm going to put this on because I want to commend Supervisor Long for bringing this resolution to the Board of Supervisors every single year. It's extremely important to all of us, and I know it's very special to you, Supervisor. I've always supported the Relay for Life over at Oxnard. I've been year after year after year, and I want to thank you for the invitation there. And I think it's important that we support the folks, the survivors. That I don't know how many labs we do over in Oxnard, but it's very beneficial. But the hours and hours, but the Oxnard firefighters have gone pink. They're raising money to fight cancer, and they were selling us hats and T-shirts. And if anybody wants to buy that, can call Jeff Donabedian, and he's at oxnardfirefighters.org in Oxnard if you want to contribute, to fighting cancer. And bought my hat for that reason, and my wife bought me a tie too, and she says, "You better wear this tie, John." So, but again, I want to thank the supervisor for bringing this before the board, and also to support, the survivors and to fight cancer. And I'm proud to wear this hat today.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. And we have others. Would you please come down, those who are here to support this. We're going to take a picture. So, please come down. And this Saturday, Camarillo has its Relay for Life at Camarillo High School. So we're going to take a picture.
John, more money. They can make all the money they want just by teaching people how to get everybody to think like they do. Can you imagine business, how they market it? Oh, marketing. Football is doing what everybody's doing. That's right. They market it.
Okay, 1, 2, and 3. And one more.
Oh, just smile.
2, and 3. Ready? 1, 2, and 3.
Oh. Where's the hat?
She's coaching.
Yeah, 2 at the hat, 1 without.
Lauren was co-chair of this year's Strides for Life. And it's her birthday.
Ah, happy birthday.
There you go. I ran it on you. Very much. Appreciate your support. I see you at a relay every year. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lauren.
Just to add, and Sandy and your team there, thank you for your just great work in the community, your partnerships that you mentioned with all the hospitals and health systems here. Healthcare agency, we've had a strong partnership. The support for families and patients has been tremendous. I hear from so many patients. And just to add to that, with that partnership too, and Supervisor Long and this board's leadership, the mobile mammography van is out in the community doing over about 1,000 exams a year, and for people with or without coverage. So just so you know, that phone number is 677-5223 to schedule it in your community. So thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, our next item is item 18, and this is Supervisor Bennett.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to ask John Lowry to come on down. And you can bring your bagpipe friend with you if you'd like.
So Cindy, you going to play one more for us?
Sure. When we finish this,
after the resolution,
that'd be a good way to end it here. But this is the 10th annual Festival of the Scottish Culture and Celtic Fun Seaside Highland Games, and John's been just a relentless supporter, organizer, coordinator of this, and one of the most important hats that he wears is promoter of this, and that's part of what we're doing here today is to try to help promote and to try to make sure that the 8,000 county employees, that many of them who are listening to this board meeting and everybody else who's involved with county government is aware of this just really fun opportunity to celebrate Scottish culture that we have here. And I didn't know that you had Supervisor Long versus Supervisor Zaragoza squared up, but
now we got
that will really draw a crowd, I'm sure, right? That we're there. So I'd like to quickly read this and then let John make mention of anything else that he'd like to add. But whereas the Seaside Highland Games are returning to Ventura County Fairgrounds for the 10th annual festival, October 13th and 14th, and I'll see you on the 14th. The County of Ventura, from its earliest days as a Chumash Indian habitat to the Spanish settlers who acknowledge this beautiful coastal area as a land of everlasting summers, has welcomed settlers from Scotland, Ireland, and all Celtic lands as they bring a greater mix of cultures and traditions to the enrichments of this county. And whereas the appeal of this year's festival will be enhanced by the United States Marine Band, the Southern California Welsh Choir, and a beautiful new harp glen, and the only Scottish fiddle competition in the state of California. And I want to go back and ask you about the United States Marine Band. One United States Marine Band is disbanding. This is not the band that is disbanding, is it?
No, sir. This band is not disbanding.
Okay, because they're on their final West Coast tour. They played in Ojai a little while ago and stuff. So this is okay. It's good to know this is not the one that is disbanding.
This one promises to be here.
memorable. So, and the Scottish Fiddle competition is going to be great. What time is the Scottish Fiddle competition?
Scottish Fiddle competition will be all Saturday morning, so come at opening at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, and you'll be directed to the fiddles. They have a new building. It's not a new building, but it's new to them, and it's going to be a great location and a great festival. Great competition.
That will really be fun. The gathering, the Ventura County Fairgrounds brings an ever greater display of the finest art, music, dance, athletics, and handcrafts of the Highland Lowlands and islands of the British Isle of their British Isle homeland. The focus is on education, enjoyment of the Scottish culture, along with everything having to do with Celtic fun by all people of all ages and backgrounds, but especially our youth who are our future. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors does hereby declare the week of October 8th to 14th as Seaside Highland Games Week in honor of all Scottish, Celtic Americans in Ventura County, and recognizes the Seaside Highland Games for their commitment to bringing this quality cultural display to the people of Ventura County and California Central Coast. We wish all of you a great success this weekend. I'd like to bring it down, but John, we'd like to give you an opportunity to make some comments to us also, supplement that.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Bennett, and thank you all for allowing us to be here today. We seem like the comic relief, I suppose I would say, after the seriousness of the last presentation. But I want to tell you that breast cancer is a very real and a very serious issue with us, with our family. Our games family has been hit a number of times, and so our athletes, the big bra lads, the guys that throw the heavy objects, they throw on behalf of breast cancer.
Excellent.
So they're dedicated to that cause, and it's very, very serious to them.
Thank you.
So, yes, we have fun. We have a lot of fun, and we want everyone to come out and have fun. Education, there is an educational aspect to it, certainly. Genealogical education, if you want. We tell people that we'll look in our books and find your name, and if we can't find your name in a book, we'll get a bigger book. So, but there are clans, there are 80 clans, which are families. A clan is a family. It's not the negative aspect of clan that we sometimes hear about. But the families are there. They all wear their tartans. Each family has different patterns for their tartans. Dance of every kind you can imagine, from the cute little Highland dancers to the adult dancers, and everyone. There's a place for everyone in it. Bagpipers, my gosh, this is one. We have hundreds of bagpipers and bagpipe bands marching together with the Marines, and they'll be doing some very special things together. The athletes I already mentioned, food and drink. Are there any children here? Scotch is kind of important to the Scots. And I have to tell you that we have a couple of events. On Friday night, there's a big Scotch tasting at the 4 Points Sheraton. I've got a dozen wonderful scotches that you might want to come out and try. And then there are educational aspects on the field as well. So it can go on. You talked about the fiddles. Scottish fiddling is not like, other fiddling. It's very special, and you'll catch the gist of it when you hear it. It really tickles your ear in a different way. So the harp thing is really new. We're tickled about that, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So we just want everyone to come out and have a good time. But thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so much. 10 years is a long time, isn't it? Do we have time for her to play a little flute?
We do.
Yeah.
You and I will hold this.
We will.
You want to go in that closed session?
So,
Thank you so much.
okay, Cindy.
I was reminded that I forgot to give the quote of the day this morning, so I want to apologize for that and go ahead and give it now.
Okay.
It's a quote comes from Mark Twain, actually. And it was, as he says, there will be two most important days in your life. One being the day that you were born, and 2 being the day that you know why. And
Okay.
also to draw attention to my tartan, which is the official tartan of the United States Marine Corps. It's called Good Conduct.
Oh.
Okay, good.
She does a amplification.
Thank you. John and Cindy, thank you so much, John and Cindy. Thank you. All righty. Okay, Supervisor Price, can you beat that?
I think, yeah, that one's a tough one to beat. I'm going to come on down to the podium.
Okay. Mental health awareness.
You can come join me. This is such a great quote. I just love that quote about the two important days in a person's life, the day you were born and the day you realize why. And I think that really goes towards what we're talking about today, because these people are leaders in our community, and it's part of their mission and their life to see that we provide better mental health services and be able to reach people who may not be able to know about them, and also to help the families. And I think that's also really important. And so I thank you all for the work that you do to help the mentally ill. And I can't think of another program in the county of Ventura that has done more in the last couple of years, not only transforming the service delivery, but also expanding to people and getting more people services that would not have otherwise got it. And a lot of that is because of the Mental Health Services Act and the funds that we have been able to get from that, in part because of the effort that they did in trying to get that law passed. So on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, we're going to proclaim October 7th through 13th Mental Illness Awareness Week. And whereas serious mental illness such as major depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive disorders, severe anxiety disorders, borderline personality disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorders affect 1 in every 4 people annually. And whereas serious mental illness is a highly treatable medical illness of the brain, posing the same concern as cancer that we heard about today, heart disease, diabetes, and other illnesses. And whereas scientific research is producing tremendous breakthroughs, hallelujah, in the understanding of mental illness, resulting in more effective treatments that allow people to reclaim full and productive lives. And whereas misunderstandings still exist about mental illness, and social culture often wrongly imposes on stigma on mental illness. And that's something else that we're combating together on the Mental Health Board and in our department. So now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors that we do proclaim this week of mental illness awareness and call upon all Ventura County residents, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our community efforts to increasing awareness about mental illness. Ratan's here today. I'll present this to you. I know Melanie, our director, and each of you, if you'd like to speak, and our head of our Mental Health Board, start off by giving you this, and if you'd like to make some comments.
Thank you. Thank you. At NAMI Ventura County, we work closely with families and people living with mental illness, and sometimes it seems that we hear stories which are negative, having to do with mental illness, and I'm here to tell you that there are many positive stories and stories of recovery, and I see them every day. I meet folks every day who've come a long way with their mental illness. We heard from the cancer folks that there's a lot of money going into research for cancer cures and so on. Comparatively, there's very little going on in mental illness issues. Yet 1 in 17 people lives with a serious mental illness right now. And nevertheless, as I said, the stories of success are remarkable. There are a couple I want to share with you really quickly. McKeon Nielsen is one of them, and I've asked his dad to join me right now and tell you a little bit about him. His story was, he published a letter in the Ventura County Star this weekend. And John, would you come on up and tell us a little bit about McKeon?
John Nielsen, thank you very much for having us here today. Our story with mental illness becomes very personal. About 3 years ago or so, our son McKeon was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and it pretty much turned our family upside down, quite a roller coaster ride. However, I can say over that time period, with the help of some wonderful doctors, psychiatrists, programs, medication, McKeon is well on his way to recovery. He currently is going to school, Wartburg College, completing his prerequisites for nursing, has a 3.5 GPA, and he is also completing his appointment on the Ventura County Mental Health Board with his mother, Denise Nielsen. And he's very active in NAMI as a spokesperson, and also with RICA in the county here. But more than anything else, the Ventura County's mental health department and services are second to none. If it weren't for the support he's received here, pretty much on a daily, weekly basis, I know he would be nowhere near recovery he is. So from our family, from me, McKeon, all those in Ventura County who suffer with mental illness, we thank you very much for your support.
Thank you for sharing, John.
Thank you. McKeon is just 24, and he's got his whole life ahead of him, and I know he's going to be successful. There's another story I want to share with you. Allison Balter helped me with the presentation yesterday to the psychology students at Pepperdine University. She's now 50. She's come a long way in her recovery with bipolar disorder. She's been living with it for 20 years now. But she has started a business of her own, and the business is called Infotech Services. She has written 15 books on computer programming, and they're all being sold on Amazon, and they're a hot seller. I want to let you know that Allison, again, she's a volunteer of NAMI as well, she has been nominated this year as the Ventura County Women's Business Owners of the Year Award, and she's receiving that at the end of this month. So there are many other stories like that. So success comes from support from families and so on, and support from other organizations in the community, as well as from our partners. We have strong partnerships with law enforcement, with community-based organizations, with the Mental Health Board, and with Ventura County Behavioral Health. And I'd like to bring up David and Melanie to tell us more about that. So thank you again for this award. Appreciate it. David?
Thank you.
I'd just like to recognize Rattan and Melanie in terms of their outstanding leadership and some of the examples of effective programs in Ventura County. It seems to me that it takes several things to have effective programs. One is outstanding leadership, and we have that. Secondly, it takes collaboration and understanding. It can't simply be government that solves the problem. So we have to work collaboratively with agencies and community-based organizations. Thirdly, and the department has been stressing this, as a lot of community organizations are also stressing this, I think we have to do programs based upon evidence-based that are effective, and we're doing that as well. So we have some things in place that are really helping Ventura County be very positive in terms of the efforts that we're making in addressing mental illness. Thank you also to the board in terms of your support. Appreciate the fact you're keeping the board full. Secondly, also want to thank you for your support of the rehab center that you're going to put in Camarillo, which is going to be very important to many clients of mentally ill. So thank you again for your support. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Thanks. I forgot to introduce myself. Dave Hombo. I'm the chair of the County Mental Health Board. Melanie?
Echoing what has already been said, the department very much appreciates the partnership that we have with NAMI and all the many volunteers that put hours and hours of their time into assisting the department and assisting people with mental illness and their families. And I also want to take special recognition of Supervisor Parks, who sits on our mental health board and is a wonderful advocate and supporter, and also to the board and to Mr. Powers as the former healthcare agency director, but now as the CEO. We really appreciate your support and that of the healthcare agency, so thank you.
Thank you, and we want to thank the mental health. Anybody else like to share?
I'd just like to say something.
Good. Supervisor Bennett.
Just, one of the things that I think has been a hallmark of our mental health effort for the last 7 or 8 years is the steadiness of the effort. And we have steady leadership from the community and steady leadership from staff. And I just want to compliment everybody, including Supervisor Parks. She steadily has served on that commission. And, with all of funding that has come in, I think we're in a lot better shape than many other counties because of that steadiness. People have a much broader overview. People are coming in with single item agendas, and so I want to compliment in particular your leadership of the commission and Melanie, a job that chews many people up, and you've been able to instead steadily handle this, and Supervisor Parks for steady interaction with the board on this. This is one of those not very heralded, but certainly when 1 in 17 people in our county suffer from serious mental illness, it is pervasive. It's one of the most important issues that we have in terms of the long-term health of the county. And if we're charged with health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of Ventura County, then the mental health of the citizens of Ventura County is really important. So thank you, all three of you.
And David and John, I want to thank you for sharing, today, and also thank mental health and Melanie and NAMI for their partnership and this great effort. I want to thank you for your excellent work, and Supervisor Parks also. Thank you.
I was just going to say thank you for sharing your success stories today. Thank you.
Supervisor Long?
Yeah, I appreciate the mental health board and the volunteers, the appointees who really keep the work moving forward and knocking down the walls of stigma. And a personal friend of mine in the last 3 months, daughter, is diagnosed and difficult, and she stepped forward and is engaging with NAMI and said it's saving her life as a parent. So it's remarkable work that you all do. We thank you.
Thank you so much.
Would you like to join Dr. Bob?
I'll take 2 pictures. The first one at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Thank you, too.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Melanie and Supervisor. And now we have Bob Hanson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Powers.
And Your Honor, too.
And Mr. Hintz and our associate Ty Ralston, one of the backbones of our organization, along with Ms. Lopez. Well, we came in at 0.65 and 289 days average maturity, which was a nice drop. I would like to get short when rates are low. It gives us a chance when there's any kind of blip in the market to go out on the curve and take advantage of what's out there, which isn't very much at the present time. In 2013, we probably have the last big part of our portfolio coming due, about $1 billion with the good rates that we extended on a few years ago. So that should carry us through 13. The current rates for 1 year are 0.20, 2 years 0.28, and 0.40 for 3 years. Regarding the economy, I'm sure you've read that they, meaning the market and the Fed, to increase rates over the next 3 years. The economy would have to get extremely strong at this point for them to do any kind of raising rates. One thing I might bring up that you won't hear about until after the election, because all you're going to hear about is whatever election you're watching, and that is the TAG program by the Federal Reserve. And that is where they came in 2008 and insured all deposits in banks for no interest-bearing accounts. And that really gave a lot of confidence to the market so that people weren't completely freaked out and they left the money in the banks. Now that has to come up for renewal by Congress December 31st, so that will be interesting to see what they'll do. Obviously, if they extend it, nothing's going to happen. If they don't extend that, you would probably see 100 to 200 billion go into the securities market, which will bring rates down even lower, because anytime you increase demand without the supply, it would lower rates. So that will come up shortly after the election when they have nothing else to write about. In regard to Supervisor Zaragoza, I'm sure you liked the part of my newsletter that said real estate markets, and this is the Beige Book, which is a book of economic results by the Fed, and it's called the Beige Book because it's beige, by the way. Real estate markets were generally improving, with all regions reporting increases in home sales, home prices, or housing construction. So I knew you would like that. I also checked this morning, just amazes me, nationally, a 15-year fixed mortgage is $266. A 30-year fixed mortgage is $331.
You know, and I refinanced at 3.6. Can you imagine that? Can I go back?
One thing that's happening also with these low rates, you're seeing a huge amount of corporations funding as much as they can, issuing new bonds because it's cheap money. But what's even more amazing, they're getting gobbled up in the market. There's so much money around. So, as Supervisor Bennett has said many times, when things go wrong, they go wrong very quickly. And I just drove by the gas pump over the weekend.
Oh, boy.
And then I heard Brentwood was $5.99 a gallon. And I know all of you agreed with Supervisor Bennett to be careful, and I am, but that's the one thing. And I'm old enough, Kathleen will tell you, Wilson, I'm old enough to remember Jimmy Carter and how quickly rates went from 3 to 4% to 19 to 20%.
I remember that time.
Wow.
I remember those
And
mortgage
waiting
rates.
in line 4 hours to
That's
top
right.
off your tank.
That's right.
And so you never know. It's never over till it's over, but
I read about it. I don't remember, but I read it.
I remember everything.
Thank you,
Anyway, that's my report.
Any other questions? Bob, thank you for the good report. And is the mortgage rate going to go any lower than what they
You
are
know,
now?
every time, I've been wrong for about 2 points now, 2 percentage points, so I don't know. You know, actually, quickly, if you put too much demand on securities and they're not being backfilled, I'm not going to say you're going to get to negative interest like the Japanese or the Chinese did when they bought treasury bills just for some place to put them because they didn't want to put them in a bank. If they got 10 basis points, what I would call an admin fee, maybe they're not making anything, but anywhere else they'd be charged more than that, and then they have the security of the U.S. Treasury behind them. So, I mean, there is that scenario that rates could go to zero, but I'm not sure what I'll say when that happens. But anyway.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, so we got a first and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Got 100% there, Bob. Thank you so much. Now we're going into a closed session, and any announcements?
We do not expect any announcements.
And we'll adjourn from closed session.
Yes.
All righty, so thank you.